Okay. My name is Piotr Mastales, and I'm an Aikido instructor from the city called Wrocław in west part of Poland. And this is one of the interviews I plan to do for a long time. At the beginning of this project, which is called Kings and Queens of Dust, I was planning to promote my book to which was a story about being uchideshi and then creating the full-time dojo. But meantime, in the middle of this process, I realized that there's more important goal for that. This is to promote people who are trying to be professional Aikido teachers, which is more and more rare and very interesting profession. And just to talk about that, it's something very special. So today I would like to introduce my good friend Darius Wingate-Pearse from Newcastle, Aikikai in Australia. We met almost, I would say, like 15, 20 years ago as a uchideshi in San Diego under Chiba sensei. And then I went my way, he went his way, we went back to our countries, and we created something like almost without contact with each other. We created something very, very similar. So being far away from like a mainstream organizations, we were able to create a full-time strong dojos. And this is fascinating for me. And this is mostly the reason why I want to do this interview, is to try to understand the mechanism of this phenomena, how to create a full-time dojo. So Darius, it's great to have you here. Thank you for saying yes for this proposition. And as I said, we've met as a uchideshi, but you started earlier. So can you say a few words about your beginning?
Okay. Well, first, thanks for having me on. I'm in humbling company chatting to you. Wow. Okay. So I started Aikido. My first exposure to Aikido was when I was 13. I had a farm. Well, my parents had a farm, and we had Japanese students come, like, just do farm stays. And one of them stayed for a while, and her dad came to visit after she had stayed with us for 6 months, and mum. And I was this big, burly, chunky sort of 12, 13-year-old kid who'd done a bit of Taekwondo and stuff like that, but nothing really serious. And this little old man bought me a handmade bokken, and he sort of gave it to me, and I probably snatched it off him really rudely and started to hit my dog with it and rocks with it and trees with it. And he sort of said to me, hit me with it. So I didn't really give it a good swing, and then I kind of did a bit, and the next thing I knew, I was on the ground a few meters away, unhurt, and he handed me back the bokken, and he said, sort of, hit me with it again. And I lost my temper, and I really tried to nail him. And he was probably half my size and impeccably dressed in this little suit. And every time I tried to hit him, the harder I tried to hit him, the further away I landed. And I wasn't hurt. I was frustrated. And I think it was a good, almost the perfect introduction to Aikido, because eventually I just started laughing. I lost my fury at him because I was a pretty angry little kid. And I was just laughing. The harder I tried to hit him, the more he smiled, and the more, I flew. So eventually he told me he'd practice this thing called Aikido, which I think I was really lucky getting a direct transmission as my first introduction. This was even before watching Steven Seagal films. Rurally in Australia, there was no chance to learn anything about Aikido, and I continued just sort of being a kid and practicing this martial art and that martial art, but it never had the same feeling. It was never more than the sum of its parts, which this little old man was. Fast forward, I did a lot of I really enjoyed other martial arts. I did Muay Thai for a while, Thai boxing, and some at uni I did karate, and I'd done some Taekwondo and boxing and stuff like that. And it was all great. I enjoyed it. The younger version of me enjoyed sort of the more combative, fighty kind of aspects of those styles. But I always missed that thing that Aikido had sort of put in my body. Loved Steven Seagal movies, all those sorts of things. Then when I was, probably about, mid to late 20s, I found a teacher in the city I lived in, an English guy, and he had trained in the UK back in the 70s and 80s under William Smith, under the direction also of Chiba Sensei. So I started my Aikido journey in earnest and got more and more into it. I remember I had a big long ponytail, and around the time I got to third kyu, he started to grab me by my ponytail and throw me around. So a couple of days later, I shaved it all off and sort of started to take my training more seriously. And all the time, you know, after training, we would sit around and my sensei, my initial sensei, Sensei Hackett, talked about this amazing, you know, larger than life figure, Chiba Sensei, that sort of was in the UK, and this figure of terror and fear and ferociousness. He didn't study under him very directly. You know, he would have done seminars with him and courses with him, and he got a few of his grades sort of under him. So it just made sense as I got more and more into Aikido that that was the direction I wanted to go in. I trained at different places around Australia, and wasn't a big fan of the feeling and the tone of the training. And I had a real epiphany when I sort of started to travel overseas and train, because I meet these guys that were my age or younger, and they were amazing, like absolutely like leagues ahead of anything I'd experienced. And I sort of said, okay, how does that happen? And they said, well, I started, you know, when I was about 7, and I trained really hard, and then I did a few years uchideshi under this teacher. I went to Japan and studied 4 or 5 years, and sort of there was this new mind-blowing concept of taking Aikido really seriously, and what that sort of opens up. At that time, it was sort of all about me, so I wanted to be as good as these guys and girls were. So I sort of thought, well, you know, what have I got to do that? In a perfect world, I think. So the club we had was sort of a part-time club, probably your 99% club. We trained, you know, 3 days a week, which was good, but it wasn't at the level I wanted. So I looked at maybe undertaking full-time training. As I was going to say, in a perfect world, it would have been amazing if some amazing Japanese Shihan had moved to Australia and opened up a full-time dojo, and I could have done uchideshi under them, or there was a full-time dojo. But I came to a revelation one day when I was doing my old job, which was kind of an office job, doing commercial litigation and sort of just standard office stuff, that, you know, I'd be 50 in no time. And back in those days, that was really old. And if I didn't sort of jump, I'd never, I'd always wonder, you know, I'd always wonder. So I asked my teacher to speak to his teachers, to see if they could get in touch with Sensei and see if he would accept uchideshi. I remember going to Yamada's Sensei's 40th or something or other. It was this massive circus seminar over in New York, but for us in Australia, it was amazing because you had Yamada Sensei and Tamura Sensei and Doshu and Shibata Sensei and all these sort of amazing sort of teachers all in one place. So we went there and did that, and I remember getting told very succinctly by one of Chiba Sensei's students that I'd never be uchideshi there. I wasn't good enough, and he wasn't even taking students anymore. So I was really pissed off with that guy, but I think he did a great job, because that was right. You can't tell me I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do it. Sensei had.
Do you remember who was that?
Sorry?
Do you remember who was that? Yeah.
Yeah, I remember who was that. That was a guy called Ben Pincus.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Nice guy. Hello, Ben.
Thank you, Ben, for lighting a fire under me.
Ben is one of the fathers of Aikido in Australia.
Yeah, you tell me not to do something, I'm more motivated. So, but again, there was another young guy at that seminar who's doing great things in Brazil at the moment, a guy called Leo Sodre. And he sort of said to me, he was just a Q grade at the time as well. I think I was like 4th Q when I went to that seminar. I knew nothing. And he sort of said, no, if you want to do it, mate, just do it. Just give it a go. What's the worst that can happen?
Another full-time teacher, very successful teacher right now, eh?
Yeah, he's doing great. He's doing really, really well. Really, really, really well. He's worked super hard too. You know, I think he goes to Japan months at a time every year, which must be so difficult, coming all the way from some, you know, South America. But Uh, so eventually, yeah, we got in touch through Suzanne, who was sort of Sensei secretary at the time, and we were initially told no. Sensei was not well, and he'd sort of stopped the Kenshusei program, and he wasn't taking uchideshi. But for whatever reason, through maybe my references or my letters or whatever, then Sensei decided to take us. So I was going over there with my ex-wife Gabriel, and so it was time to sell my house and literally sort of put a couple of things in storage, which was lovely, really liberating, just getting rid of all this material stuff and living out of a backpack for a year. And then I went a month before Gabriel, and I went over to San Diego.
Yeah, you said that like it's normal thing, but it's really fascinating for me. Yeah, because we pretty much similar, and for us it's normal. Like, oh, I'm gonna sell everything what I have. I'm gonna go there. But for most of the people, now you have many students, and I don't know if you've been in this position to, like, when you see a young guy with a huge potential, and you go to him and say like, oh, it's great, you know, you have a future. You could be someone's uchideshi, and he's really excited, and you say, just sell everything what you have, leave. You're gonna have this incredible feeling of freedom, and you see this panic in the eyes. Says, no way, I'm not gonna do this. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is really, really unique, and you'll be crazy. You don't even know about that.
Yeah. I touched on before. I was sitting, you know, in my corporate sort of day-to-day, I still use the term, it's sort of a self-limiting term, but I say when I had a real job, and I would look at all these people who'd been doing what I was doing, but 30 years, and they were just decrepit, and they hated what they'd done, and they were all talking about how they wish they'd done this and wish they'd done that. So, you know, you only get one life. So maybe
yes. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think it's definition of the of this madness you feel, and there's certain. In my case, I honestly believe there's having dojo and surviving as a full-time teacher is one thing. So as we know, we depend on regular, normal people who are not able to take such a decisions. But inside of your soul, you're looking for someone like you are. Sooner or later, there will be someone who will come to you, and either it's like asking, can I be your uchideshi, or maybe can you send me somewhere? Doesn't really matter. But someone for who this is like organic and natural, just to leave everything and go somewhere to search. Yeah. And then this is very unique. This is why I'm talking to you, because, you know, in my case, in case of crazy Kazakh people or whatever, you know, it's one thing to be uchideshi when you're living in San Diego or States. And the second thing is just to come from all over the world, from another country, from another culture, and, you know, to search for something deeper. And there are so many of us all over the world, and people don't even know, because this model doesn't exist anymore. I have this feeling like it's less and less.
Well, I think it exists. You know, I think we do our best to have it exist in our dojos, and I know, you know, Robert in Brooklyn, it certainly exists there, because we weren't in San Diego. You and I were in this feudal Japanese hot pot. You know, we went outside to San Diego occasionally, but wherever it was in the world was pretty.
Next question is, did you already know that you want to be professional when you went there? Or,
yes.
Okay, so
I didn't know what
that wasn't.
I did.
That wasn't like a search for identity, you know, like a point goal of the. Oh, okay, another very common thing. Yeah, I noticed that the people who went there to, you know, discover themselves, usually they never uchideshi. They never full-time teachers later. Yeah, they got what they wanted. They keep going. Yeah. And in our case, we already knew what we want to do. We're just looking for the tools.
Yeah, it would have been lovely. You know, it would have been easier, I think. I'm glad it never happened. But like I said, if a Japanese Shihan had moved to Australia and opened up a dojo, and, you know, they could have been the full-time teacher, and I could have just been a really committed student, and maybe that would have been a different thing. But, you know, it's easy to wait for somebody else to do it. If I didn't do it, you know, who would have?
Big question. I'm thinking, like, I was preparing the question for you, And one of the question was, because I just came from Australia, and I'm really impressed with all you've built there. And that I told you reminds me what I had like 15 years ago, when Poland was really poor and we couldn't afford going to the seminars, and we kind of isolated, like you guys are, because of the geographic situation. And there's this hunger, which is healthy and beautiful. And Chiba Sensei really enjoy when he came first time to Poland, and he saw 200 people, and most of them, they were our students here, and they were really trying. And he said, it's not polluted. I didn't know at this time what does it mean. It means they're still hungry.
Yeah.
And then the borders open, and there were tens of teachers coming, and in natural way, people got this self-defense mechanism to just protect themselves from all this information. You know, they lock themselves in the small groups, and there's no more hunger.
Yeah.
And we're trying to keep it, but really, like, if I have to close it in one sentence, it's like Aikido is aging, you know, and there's too much information. There's no more hunger. That's and what I saw in your place was something like going back in the time. Because even people are really good, but they still hungry, and you know, minds are open, and a huge question how to keep it. I don't know the answer. We fail.
We've always been, like you said, I've always felt really kind of isolated, and when we were over here, we spoke about that being a blessing and a curse, a complete blessing and curse. You know, I get, you know, Jenny Flower Sensei just had this amazing seminar as it's her grand opening, and it's you know, all these people I sort of just think are phenomenal teachers all in one place, and that's sort of, we don't get that out here. You know, you've just experienced the 30 hours travel to get you know, to get to it. And so we're limited in that regard, but also as we've touched on, we also don't have we're just on our own, so we don't have any ill winds coming from sort of established egos or established sort of organizations or anything like that. And we've managed to, we've been here 17 years now, we've managed to, as you said, keep people hungry. People are still really excited about Aikido. So yeah, I think we were talking about how you know, there's this, like, Aikido's in a lot of places really old. Like, I watch a lot of Aikido online, and I've trained with a lot of people around, and I can see the criticism, and it's self-driven. You have all these old men, particularly, that just are more in touch with being the Shihan or the boss than any sort of progression. They don't let young people teach. They don't practice. They don't take ukemi anymore. And yeah, so I see what that is. So I'm not trying to be sitting here being critical. That's sort of a negative thing. But what I've tried to do here is to sort of go against that. Why should it be old people? Why shouldn't young people teach? Why shouldn't the teacher take ukemi? And my students, for better or worse, don't know any better. And you know, we've got a really young, vibrant, you know, and when I say young and vibrant, you met my first student, Kobayashi-san. And I think I was talking about that before. Like, when you start a dojo, you don't have students, and then some poor fool walks in, and there's some guy who's just got out of San Diego, or some girl who's just got out of San Diego, training by themselves like a madman, and they're lucky any of them survive that kind of intensity when they walk in off the street. But one of our first people was a Japanese gentleman, and he was 56, I think, when he started. He wanted his son, who was 14, to train with him, and they did for a couple of weeks, but the son lost interest, and he stayed. And he's one of my teachers now, and he's 74. But he still practices in a really young, Genki way. Like, he takes ukemi. He doesn't do that old person's Aikido, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I was there, and it's beautiful. Is I think one of the crucial things is like healthy proportions, because as you said, before, when you were young and you went for a beer with your teacher and he was talking about this incredible Chiba sensei, and he was already
Yeah.
old, he was 50, and you are 50 now. So
Yeah.
that's the question about aging Aikido. For me, I take it very personal, because even if all of us, I think it's one of the biggest problem inside, we feel like we're 20.
Yeah.
Physically, maybe not so, but emotionally, yes. And we already old. And like in my case, I have a very strong advanced group. We're talking about like 20, 25 black belts. And mostly those guys are my age or a little bit younger. So let's say 40 and up. And they're really strong. So they can dominate everybody. They can just destroy every 20 years old kid who has ambitions. And as a teacher, you have to decide, I think, and it's gonna come to you, because you dojo a little bit younger, but you already have the bunch of guys who are like 40, 50, and they need on Sundance. They still very strong, very good Aikido, but where is your attention? Who is in the center of it? As you said before, there is a period of being egoistic, me, which is healthy if you grow up out of it.
Yeah.
You know? This is why we went to San
Yeah.
Diego, because of me. And then sensei or wherever you come to this by yourself, you realize it's not me anymore. Someone else is me. And dojo has to be focused on the people who are me, period. This is my understanding, right? This is my way to protect my dojo from aging. I
Yeah.
have this discussion with the advanced people. I say to them, it's not about you anymore. You're not baby anymore. You know, those kids are your kids' age. Now help me to help them.
Mm.
And many of them leave because they so attached to this me period, you know. This is why they train, because of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is what I think.
Yeah. I try and get that. I try and nip that in the bud really, really soon. Like as soon as, like, from day one, I'm telling beginners, this isn't just about you. This is about the dojo. The further you go up through the grades, like, we've got a really good group of fourth Qs that have come through this really, and you would have seen it over the years. Sometimes a bunch of people will start roughly at the same time, and they'll motivate each other and they'll push each other, and they'll come through this sort of really good tight cohort. And there's a range of abilities there, but as they sort of come through, I keep saying to these guys, okay, so now you're fourth Q, you have more obligation to the dojo. Now you're third Q, you've got to give back to the dojo more. So I would like to think that by the time people get to Shodan level, they get that. They get that it's more than the sum of their parts. And I said this to you, and I say this to my junior classes all the time. And people might think I'm bloody arrogant and sacrilegious or whatever, but we can either put O Sensei here, Chiba Sensei here, insert us here, our students here, their students here, and look at the trajectory. Like, what's the point of practicing Aikido in 20 years' time if that's the trajectory? Or we can try and, a good teacher should be getting their cheeks broken by their students. They should be getting, I don't know whether you've ever got to a stage, I certainly have, where your students, like, you've got to say, oh shit, that's the first time I've actually had to take real ukemi from my students. And that's a great feeling. I see a lot of teachers don't ever want to get in that position, and they set themselves up as the grand poobah out the front. So they're never threatened. They never get things wrong. And I think that's how Aikido gets stagnant, or that's how Aikido gets old, or anything in that regard. It's our job. Well, it's my view, and my sort of goal has always been to make students that are much, much better than me. There are guys that I've got that take much better ukemi than I'll ever take, and push and push and push, so that the trajectory of Aikido is not downwards. 40 years ago, there were a whole bunch of full-time professional Aikido teachers, and now I think there's 2 in Australia, maybe 3, and none of them are not, like, 2 of them are Yoshinkan. I think they've got more of an established culture of understanding how valuable a full-time dojo and a full-time teacher is, but none in Aikikai sort of realms, other than the ones that we've got. Like, one of my uchideshi is sort of running a full-time dojo in Adelaide with his dad. You know, you've got to be the change you want. Otherwise, you're just sitting around whinging about stuff.
I'm trying to be far away from judging people not going our path, because I think our path is very unique, and I don't think it's very healthy. And the you know, phenomena of San Diego was, for me, the fact that people from all over the world were able to meet, and they're very unique, and like in a very specific way. Like, I would say those are people who are pretty much not happy with their own life, and they felt that there is some special way. You know, I have this incredible metaphor I find in Australia when we were with one of your students, John, who took me to bush walking, and he showed me these bushes, and he said those plants are incredible because the seeds will open and give the life only if this bush will burn. And this is actually, I wouldn't describe it better. It's like inside of my soul, and whoever I talk from my friends who had the same experience feel the same. There was this deep need to burn down, you know, to what's going to happen with me if I just die on a mat, you know? And if I don't, I feel I will regret it to the end of the life. But the rest of the people, they are really nice people who like Aikido. They train twice a week. And they don't have to do this incredible sociopathic experience. And yeah, it's true. And also, if you look at this, many of them, they're really, really good. So you don't have to kill yourself 5 hours a day to get there. Many people, they pretty good training 3 times a week, and it works. So
yeah, I try and really steer clear of paraphrasing sensei, because I think a lot of teachers that have put, you know, in all styles, you know, Sagano said this or sensei said that, and then suddenly their words have so much meaning and gravity. But I think there's sort of a quote from sensei around, you know, it needs to be like a tree. There's like people that are the roots and people that are the, you know, and I think you need maybe sociopaths like us to hold our space, and we need people who are just going to come once a week and potter about, and we need young guys that are going to, you know, it's an ecosystem, and I think they need us, and we need them. And I think in the case of the dojos that have been successful and are still running and have got healthy communities, then it just shows what value it has. I've got an article by sensei on the front door of our dojo about how a dojo is not, it doesn't make any sense in the modern world. From a modern economic rationalist point of view, it's a big space and it's pointless, and you know wasting, it's empty a lot of the time, but it brings such enrichment and value to the community on so many levels, that it's just an integral part of what the world needs. And I think, you know, COVID, I think, showed that people desperately miss that connection and that aspect of training and that aspect of being together. And also, you know, they saw how in that kind of quasi difficult sort of situation, for at least in Australia, we were pretty, you know, we didn't have mass graves and we didn't struggle the way a lot of people internationally had to struggle with the pandemic. You know, people were still really confronted by their lack of resilience and how quickly they fell apart. So I think the sort of place where you can go and get your seed pod burned to see what comes out, what's left when you burn it down, is sort of it's so valuable.
Yeah, it's ups and downs. And another question is, which comes from my experience also. Like, I ask this question to myself all the time, because it's like all this experience in San Diego with Chiba sensei. For me, the most value thing was the fact that this dream I had is real. Because as I told you, most of the people I met in my life were less serious than I was. And then you meet someone like him, and you realize you're not serious. And then you also, you and me, we are not Japanese teachers. We don't have this background. We're not coming from this culture. We don't speak language. We don't understand the roots of Aikido. And even if we study and you know, spend years and decades on it, probably still wouldn't get it. So long time ago, I realized I have to go back to my country and try to create something really organic. So Aikido is a tool, but I'm coming from a different culture. So as you said, it has to be part of the community, neighborhood.
Mm.
And this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to connect to the local schools, we're trying to connect to the culture centers, working with the actors, different things. What do you do to be part of your culture?
I think over the last 17 years, we've just, as you said, we've done the same thing. Like we have schools that just come to Aikido for sport. So instead of going to do baseball or football or anything, they just come to the dojo once a week and do sport. We've survived. You know, we're at a stage now where you go and you'll talk to a principal at a school or a business owner, and yeah, their kid did Aikido. You know, over the last 17 years, we've just been in the community, and that permeates in and permeates out. So in our small part of Newcastle, we're just like, everybody knows us. You know, it's a well recognized place, and you know, everyone's sort of heard of it. We've done sort of street fairs. You know, I love this art, and I've done a lot, as much as I sort of can, to let people know it's there. Which initially was tricky because there wasn't that much social media and internet around 17 years ago. It's got easier in that regard, but it's also got a bit harder because you've got all this noise and this bullshit online about,
Yeah, but
you know,
just to specify, because not everybody knows, your town is like 200,000 people.
That's right, yeah.
Which is small town, and you managed to create full-time dojo with how many mats there?
I think we got about 80 tatami.
Yeah, it's a huge, beautiful space with, if I'm not wrong, like up to 200 members, which is really, really impressive for such a small town. You know, it's not Sydney, it's not New York, it's not Paris, and you're able to create something so strong. There's another reason why I'm really impressed with your job. You said something, but when I was there, you said something really interesting. So, which is a really nice opening for another question. That in your culture, traditionally, it's really big issue to be full-time teacher, and this money problem. You know, it's like someone pay you, and I know you're laughing, but I did my research. I checked online, and you're right. It's like there are people who are proud of being not professional, which is really strange. But at the same time, I'm coming from the culture where I decided to be full-time teacher. Everybody was really disgusted with me. Like, Aikido is something you should do for free. It's a mission, you know.
Yeah.
You shouldn't sell it.
Yeah.
It's almost like a prostitution to take any money. Really fascinating.
Yeah.
Because we went to the United States, and it's much more healthy approach. It's your profession, you're supposed to be paid. That's it. Like my culture, my question comes from the fact that I'm still infected with this. Like, each time I take money, I feel guilty. Even if this is my job, you know, my kid needs shoes, you know, but I still feel guilty.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I had a lot of friction with my first teacher because he was very much of that attitude, and it's been a tricky road. It's taken me a long time to be, because you come up with, you know, you have your parents' morals, you know, and then you come up and then you sort of, then you hit this sort of revelation. Well, okay, well, these people I respect, like Chiba Sensei and these guys, are full time. So how do you do I want to go to a full-time electrician to get my wiring fixed, or do I want to go to a part-time electrician to get my wiring fixed? So I don't want to be judgmental around part-time people, as long as people are doing their best to fit things in life. But yeah, when I came back from San Diego, my direct instructor would say I was prostituting myself. There's another organization here in Australia, the one that's been around longest, and the only thing they have sort of on their website highlight is none of our teachers are paid to teach Aikido as sort of this moral. It comes across to me as being this moral thing. So their standard of teaching is never going to be swayed by money, and that's sort of, for me, yeah, are you trying to say that I'm going to give people grades for cash? People don't pay enough money for Aikido grades to, like, somebody that's done that has not walked in our shoes and realized sort of what we've done for the last however long, and the money we get from that. And it was really hard initially, and I think you're still struggling with it from what you said, and I don't anymore. I've let that go, but that was a hard road for me to let that go.
Just to make it clear, I'm not struggling. It's not like there's a line of people who wants to give me money, and I'm no, because this work is so hard, and you're happy when you get some. So yeah, I think in Poland, like 20, 30 years ago, I could be issue, because there were so many people who wanted to train. It was easy money. I was too stupid and too young to realize that, and maybe too, because all depend, and money destroys you. I think if you can imagine that you're in a situation when you actually have a choice, like to do this for free, or have 500 people paying you a lot of money and destroy your soul, but it's not the issue. It's not like that. We're all struggling, trying to survive. And the fundamental of full-time dojo is, as you said, this is like mostly empty space in the center of the city. Someone has to pay for that. And from my point of view, the amateurs, people who are not taking money from the dojo, or not even, it's not about taking money. It's like taking a personal responsibility for paying the bills. Those are people who live in comfort of living in dream, illusion, and we don't have it. We don't have it, because the broken toilet and shit everywhere in the dojo, it's on you. As far as possible from living in a beautiful dream of being a sensei. So, and behind each dojo there is someone who is taking care of the dojo. Always like that.
Yeah, I think that's important that the students see that from as close to day one as possible. Like when someone comes in, if someone wants to do a class, I make them watch, because I don't want to sell people on something that it's not. And then they clean the floor, like before they've even signed up, before anyone kind of joins. It's like, okay, this is what we do, and come and clean the floor and go home and think about whether you want to commit to this training. And then there's an honesty there. I don't want to, I don't want them to be sold on something it's not. We are going to clean the floors. We are going to sweat. We are going to have to, like you say, when the toilet's back up, we're going to have to mop shit off the floor. That's just what we do. But it's our space. And the students, in my experience, the more the students are invested in that kind of stuff, the more they value the space. It's the students that sort of come in and pay their money and then go off like they're at some gym. They don't sort of have that investment that the students that are outside on cold winter's morning doing the gardening have. So they're missing out.
Yeah. There are some stages of more or less predictable stages of growing dojo. And it's like when I started full-time dojo, I was really sensitive about that, because there were a number of people I visited before who started Aikido 10, 20 years before me. And I saw the stages, like mostly getting older, or as you said, less and less enthusiastic. And I was trying to avoid it. My next question is about the very painful subject of losing people who are leaving the dojos, and from my experience, it's usually, I consider everything very much personal. Like whatever happens, I consider it as my fault.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which maybe it's mistake, maybe it's because those are human beings and they have as much potential as I do. So there's always dynamic relationship, and I learned so much from it. And also, it's so depressing the process which repeats generation after generation after generation. And what's your thoughts about? What do you think about that?
That's a tricky one. The sort of, so to start off, my last my last interview with Sensei before I left San Diego, like we're sitting down, it's about to go, and he's sending me off to Australia to do my thing. Like there's a couple of things he said, and one of them was, "Are you sure you want to do this? This is the most heartbreaking job in the world. Your students are going to break your heart." And I said, I had no idea. I said, "Yes, Sensei. Yep, I do." But he knew, and I had to live through that. I've been through all of that. I've been through that. What have I done wrong? Am I not tough enough? Am I too rough? And that's ego wanting to pop up, but that's also not to be too hard on us in our jobs. Like we a lot of where we're at is through our own stubbornness, blood, sweat, tears. We invest our life into what we've done and these communities we create, and it's a really interesting dynamic in terms of ownership of community. How much of this community is my community because I open the dojo and I'm at every class, and I'm setting the tone and I'm passing this fire forward, and how much is when do you sort of have to be okay being a servant leader and start belonging to your students? So coming back around, I've been through that. Why did this person leave? What have I done? What could I do better? But that's never going to end well. And I spoke to you about this sort of on the first day. A really clarifying moment for me was a student that I had since he was a kid, and he was amazing. Beautiful, beautiful boy. I'll probably get teary telling you this story because I can't help it. He went to do his Shodan test. He did a great Shodan test, and the guy who was visiting from England just sort of pulled the rug out from under him after he'd done the test and said, "Oh, you're too young. I've never graded anybody under 18, so I'm not going to pass you." And he was like, "Yeah, no problem. I'll do it better next time." Really good kid. And then out of the blue, he just, started to be nasty and took away and just really he was like a son. You and I have had many, many sons over the years, and maybe there's an aspect of us wanting to be good fathers that puts us in this role. But he sort of stuck this knife in and twisted it and disappeared from the dojo. And I really struggled with that. And I went through a lot of soul searching and what have I done and all that kind of stuff. And then years later, I found out from his mum that he had tried to commit suicide. And so what he'd done is pretty common. I've researched it. Is he had burned the bridges with people he really, really cared about. And the way their mindset, people who are in that desperate position, their minds are, is I'm going to try and make this person I love hate me. I'm going to make them really angry with me. And then when I do take my life, I'm going to be not hurting them so much. So he'd actually been really cruel to me in, not in a mental health. And the end of the story is positive. He's doing really well. He didn't commit suicide, but that was sort of what he went through. So that was really painful, but like the fire burning the seed again, that sort of clarified me that it's not, I'm a co-contributor to the relationship with the student for sure, but most of the time you don't know what's going through their life. You can just set an authentic place, an authentic tone, and they take it or leave it. And the only secret I've come up with at this point in time, and asked me in a year, I've maybe changed my mind, is my job is just to keep the doors open. My job is just to stay there. Because, people come back.
I remember the discussion with Sensei, and that was many years ago. I had one of those stories when, your heart is broken and you're just sitting there and thinking, well, what I done wrong. You know, I was really trying. This person was like the thing, one of the, and Chiba sensei, and I said to sensei, and sensei said, oh, all I do is I'm trying to find the good things in the people.
Yeah.
And at this point, we're like in middle of Kenshusei program, and his relation with me was pretty much he's trying to kill me and I'm trying to survive. So
Yeah.
I just didn't believe it because he didn't look like someone who's looking for good things. Maybe he was looking for good things in me to break. So that I would, yeah. But after years and years of this experience, I realized that the first of all, maybe it's not mistake, but it's like misunderstanding is that most of us as the teachers, we create this artificial family in a dojo, and which brings the people because they find another home. You're like daddy, you know this is like a huge issue, like daddy issue in a dojo, which is natural. The closest students we have, there are people who with like a broken relation with the parents and they come in to fix it, or they're going through the really hard time in a home or wherever, and they use it because they need it. And then when it's fixed or they don't need it anymore, they will hit you with this, you're not my daddy, this is not my family, I have enough, I'm leaving. And you're staying there, you're the only constant place, and you're just sitting there. What I did, you did nothing wrong. They just took what they wanted and they left. This is where I am now, and I think it's pretty healthy, but it still doesn't change pain, doesn't take the pain away. And also with a full-time dojo, you have this feeling, I hope you will not experience that, but like this so complicated structure, everything can get broken, toilets, garden, whatever, name it, that bills, someone, and then at the end of the day, you're alone there. So people are changing, the generation of the guy who helped me like 15 years ago doesn't talk to me anymore. I don't even know why. Yeah. Anyway, it's still beautiful, and the experience of being close to these people and being important and creating the house for them, it's something very unique. Yeah. So the next question, because we have to finish soon, what's your goal? Where are you going? Because I explained that because I remember the first years of building the dojo was like subconsciously you create like a nest, like a bird trying to build a nest. You know what you have to do. You have the feeling that you have to build it, and then it's built. And what's next? How do you feel?
Like you say, it's a cycle. I think for me, the way my mind works, it was always, and I say this to my students and my uchideshi, like you've got to be careful about and then. So initially it was, can I find the space? Is there going to be, is it going to work? I've got my original teacher telling me it's not going to work. I've got no one in Australia who's done it. Can you even set up a full-time dojo and make it work? So you put all your energy into doing that, and coming back to people telling you can't do it, you get it done. And then once that's done, it's okay, well, now we've got to get our first students to Shodan. So there's always the capacity to be goal driven, but and then where you want to maybe get to this grade, or maybe get Hombu accreditation, or maybe get this teacher out, or maybe have people that you really respect sort of say, hey, you're doing a good job. But at the end of sensei talked about quiet work. I'm going to get up in the morning and go to morning class. That's my, in some ways that's my goal, just to get up the next morning, turn up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Is there no one there? Am I going to do saburi? Is there 6 people? Long term, I want to leave Aikido in a better place than where I found it, to be really honest with you. I'd love to set up, and I think sensei did this beautifully, set up so I can die or get myself injured to death. That's what I tend to like to do, and it's going to keep going. You know, initially there's a logistical thing of the space. I'd love to get this space going in perpetuity. I would like to get the community continuing to grow, because the Aikido here is getting better all the time. There's young people that are more excited. It's getting bigger and bigger. So, you know, like I said, I'd like to leave Aikido better than where I found it. I think, and I know, irrespective of whether you'd agree with it or not, I know that you're the sort of person that's put Aikido first. You know, for whatever reason, you know, we rationalize why we're doing what we've done and what we're going to continue to do. The underlying point of that, and whatever the motivation is we put Aikido first. I think, you know, over and above ourselves. And Sensei did that. So yeah, that's, you know, short. The first thing that popped to mind was, like I said, leaving Aikido here in a better place than where I found it.
Okay, Darius, thank you very much for your time. And I don't know what to say, because I'm so impressed with the job you've done, and good luck with this. And it's a great honor to be there. It was a great honor to be there and to see it. And I hope to have you here as soon as possible. And say hello to all your members. And
I will. And that
thank
means,
you for interviewing.
that's really humbling. I remember, and I tell all my students about how, you know, you taught me how to take backwards ukemi. We took this sort of old school high fall backward roll ukemi, and I got to San Diego and Sensei was away, and you beat the shit out of me saying, what the fuck are you doing? You can't land like that. You got to do this. And, you know, again, I think a lot of the things we've said to each other in this conversation would get us committed if we were saying that in a normal, you know, context. Trying to kill each other, and, you know, Sensei was trying to break me, but, you know, that means, you know, we've been through that. Like, our seed pods have opened together in the same fire, and there's a lot of people that wouldn't even go near that fire, let alone understand what happens when you know, when you've been through it and out the other side. So that means, you know, that means a lot. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and have a good day.